Hi everyone, Smo here. Last time we talked about Exusie the New Covenant, and today it's her sister's turn. Say hello to Lemuen, the gorgeous but lethal sniper who's taking the spotlight as the standard 6-star operator for the 6th anniversary banner. And yeah, it's no coincidence these two sisters showed up together. With the 6th anniversary, Hyperglyph dropped the new ammo-based Laterano squad, and both Exusie and Lemuen are right at the heart of it. Lemuen's job here is to melt enemies with absurd damage. We are talking some of the highest DPH in the entire game, and she does it with what's basically a global attack range. Absolutely insane. What's even more impressive is that the devs actually made her powerful without breaking her archetype. Considering how players have been grumbling about recent operators invalidating their archetype's limitations, that's no small feat. So yeah, props where props are due. But let's be real, meta talk aside, Lemuen is pure elegance. She nails that fragile but deadly beauty vibe, both in gameplay and in that stunning 3D PV. And when she swooped in to save her sister in the video, man, that was such a badass moment. That alone sold me on her. Alright, intro's done. Let's jump straight into Lemuen's kit. Alright, let's start by talking about Lemuen's archetype, the Deadeye Sniper. Now, surprise surprise, Lemuen isn't the first 6-star from this branch. That title actually goes to Fartooth, who came out 4 years ago. Wait, who the heck is Fartooth? I can already hear you asking. Don't worry, there's a reason most players barely even remember her. See, Deadeye snipers have this quirky targeting trait. They automatically aim for the enemy with the lowest defense in their range. The issue here is that these snipers have huge attack stats and a painfully slow 2.7 second attack interval. They're built to nuke big tanky enemies, not waste their shots on some random low defense slug crawling by. So yeah, that smart targeting ends up being their biggest flaw. Instead of blasting a boss, you're watching Deadeye snipers one-tap a trash mob and then chill for another 2.7 seconds before they can actually do something useful. Painful, right? There is one small silver lining though. This trait can override taunt mechanics, so in places like IS-5, it can help you avoid being stuck hitting those annoying yellow crystals. But then you get stages like H7-4 where you're begging, can we please hit Patriot, please? And they just won't. Yeah, not great. It also messes with your muscle memory. Normally, you expect your sniper to finish off a target before switching, but Deadeye snipers? Nope. The second a lower defense enemy strolls into their range, they'll drop the nearly dead big guy and start shooting the weak one. Next thing you know, that big enemy walks right into your blue box and leaks. And it doesn't stop there. Take IS-6 for example. You've got those nasty talismans that latch onto your operators, dealing damage and blocking their skills. Most operators prioritize taking those out, but Lemuen, nah, she'll just keep shooting whatever has the lowest defense around, completely ignoring the talisman stuck to her. So instead of freeing herself, she keeps eating damage, her DPS tanks, and before you know it, leaks everywhere. So yeah, that's the Deadeye Sniper curse in a nutshell. But it's not all bad news. Besides their monstrous attack power, these snipers also have an insane range, as wide as Wisha does. And with the right skills, they can push that range even further. Fartooth and Embriel, for instance, can practically shoot across the entire map. And Lemuen's got her own talent to pull off a pseudo-global range too. Now, usually this is where I'd say, don't worry, the devs gave her some overpowered talent that completely fixes her flaws. But not this time. If you're tired of Hyperglyph just slapping band-aids on archetypes, you'll actually like this. Lemuen doesn't have any magic fix. Sure, her skill 2 changes her targeting behavior for the most part, but for skills 1 and 3, you'll still have to play around that annoying quirk. No free lunch for Lemuen. Alright, let's break down Lemuen's first talent. Basically, it gives her a kind of global range, but only against elite and boss enemies. Here's how it works. If any elite or boss stays inside the attack range of any Laterano operator for 8 seconds, that enemy gets tagged as wanted. You know it when you see that red crosshair floating above their head. Once marked, that enemy takes 15% more damage from all Laterano operators, and Lemuen can hit them from anywhere on the map, even if they're outside her normal range. This opens up a ton of tactical options. You can let your other Laterano units do the risky work of spotting elites and bosses, while Lemuen sits comfortably on a safe tile, raining death from a distance. Since the Laterano faction is packed with ranged operators, tagging enemies for her is usually a piece of cake. You can even use someone like Plume to help, since she refunds her DP when retreated. But remember, she has to survive a full 8 seconds in front of the enemy before the wanted tag appears. Now, here's a really important detail. Just because Lemuen can shoot wanted enemies from anywhere doesn't mean she will. The problem is, she doesn't prioritize them. Her Deadeye Sniper trait still makes her target the lowest defense enemies first. So even if there's a big, scary wanted boss across the map, if a paper-thin mob walks into her range, she'd go for that instead. Yeah, it can be really frustrating. Also, figuring out what counts as an elite enemy isn't always obvious. Bosses are easy, they've got those big distinct HP bars, but elites, you might need to check the wiki for that. For instance, the shield guards in stage H7-2 are elites, but the much tougher Sarkaz shield guards in stage 14-8 actually aren't. Go figure. Still, this talent is the heart of Lemuen's kit. It's what sets her apart from every other damage dealer in the game. The ability to lock onto elite and boss enemies anywhere and safely snipe them from across the map is absolutely huge. And the best part is that the more Laterano operators you've got on the field, the stronger this talent gets. That 15% damage boost against wanted enemies applies to every Laterano operator, not just Lemuen. Another cool thing, the wanted mark sticks through multi-phase bosses, and the 6th anniversary boss has like 6 of them. So yeah, Lemuen absolutely shreds in that fight. Long story short, Lemuen earned her crown as the queen of boss killers. Don't be surprised when she becomes a staple in future boss killing strats. Lemuen's second talent kicks in after she's been on the field for 20 seconds. Once it does, she gets a plus 10% attack boost and 1 extra bullet in her magazine. You'll know it's active when you see that pink laser flicker out of her rifle's crosshair. That's the visual cue she's locked and loaded. Now, here's the thing, Lemuen doesn't get a ton of bullets to begin with. Her skills give her a tiny ammo pool, only up to 7 bullets max. But every one of those shots hits like a truck, dealing tens of thousands of damage. So even just 1 extra bullet is a huge deal for her. And because her skills have huge attack multipliers, that plus 10% boost from her talent is massive. Lemuen loves attack buffs. Feed her more attack and she'll pay you back tenfold in melted bosses. Now let's talk about her Y module, which came out alongside her release. This thing gives her 1 SP every time she attacks an enemy that doesn't die. And since Lemuen's range is practically global, she'll almost always have something to shoot at, meaning she's almost always getting that SP boost. On top of that, the Y module upgrades her second talent. The attack boost jumps from plus 10% to plus 18%, and she gains 2 extra bullets instead of 1. It even throws in 1 more bullet for all Laterano operators. And a funny side note, even though Exusiae only technically gains 1 extra bullet from this, it actually lets her fire 1 more full 5-round burst with their skill 3. So yeah, the Y module is definitely solid and worth some investment if you plan to use Lemuen regularly. That said, if Fartooth's modules are any hint, Lemuen's future X module might be even crazier. It's expected to give her up to plus 15% damage against distant enemies and buff her first talent, which, as we've seen, is the cornerstone of her entire kit. Since Lemuen's range is practically global, at least when it comes to elites and bosses, she'd benefit greatly from that. In short, the Y module is a great pick right now, but if you're tight on resources, you might wanna hold off until we see that X module drop. Just something to keep in mind before you start pouring mats into her. Alright, let's start with Lemuen's first skill, which is basically her AFK skill. It triggers automatically, gives her 6 bullets, and lets her hit 2 enemies at once with each shot. Pretty solid for general coverage. Plus, it only costs 8 SP, which sounds great, until you notice this is an offensive recovery skill, and you remember her 2.7 second attack interval. Even under optimal conditions, those 8 SP can take more than 21 seconds to charge back up. That's where her Y module really earns its keep. It helps her regain SP faster, practically cutting that cooldown in half to around 10 seconds. Suddenly, the skill feels way smoother and much more reliable. But honestly, the offensive recovery part isn't even a real downside. Why? Because of Arketto. Arketto's talent gives 1 SP every 2.5 seconds to snipers with offensive recovery skills, which includes Lemuen. That improves her uptime even more. And speaking of Arketto, she's about to get absolutely cracked with her 6th anniversary IS module. It will massively boost SP recovery and attack for all offensive recovery operators, not just snipers, and give her an absurdly long range. Like, who thought this was balanced? Even better, Arketto is also Laterano, so she can help mark enemies for Lemuen with that crazy range and also benefit from that plus 15% damage against wanted targets. Pair them up with Monster and you've got yourself a really nasty core team for integrated strategies. Now, if we are comparing, Lemuen's skill 1 actually does a surprisingly good job against high defense enemies thanks to her IDPH. It stacks up pretty well next to other AFK options like Narantuya's skill 1. That said, Narantuya still reigns supreme when it comes to dealing with swarms of weak mobs. Lemuen can't quite match that. But don't worry, this isn't where Lemuen truly shines anyway. Her real powerhouses are skills 2 and 3, the ones that crank her damage through the roof and let her dominate both single target and multi-wave fights. So let's dig into those next. Lemuen's skill 2 is everything you'd want from a top-tier sniper, pure, focused boss-killing power. When you activate this skill, she gains a big attack and attack speed boost, then loads up 7 special bullets. Here's the key, those bullets aren't wasted on random trash mobs, they are reserved exclusively for wanted enemies, the ones marked by her first talent. Even better, during this skill, Lemuen actually prioritizes those wanted targets. And here's the cherry on top. If there are no wanted enemies on the map, Lemuen keeps the attack and attack speed buff indefinitely, without spending ammo. She just sits there, buffed and ready, waiting for the next big threat to pop up. Now, when a wanted enemy does appear, Lemuen locks onto them, consumes one bullet, and starts aiming. You'll see it clearly with that big red laser sight. She can aim for up to 3.5 seconds, and the longer she aims, the stronger the shot gets. Her attack multiplier ramps up over time. It's a classic charge-up mechanic, but here's the cool part. Lemuen is smart about it. If the target's combined HP and defense is lower than Lemuen's attack stat, she immediately fires. No waiting. Basically, if she knows she can one-shot something, she doesn't bother charging, she just pulls the trigger. This is a subtle but brilliant optimization that keeps her from feeling too sluggish despite her slow firing rate. Of course, there's a catch. This system doesn't account for damage reduction or shields. So, against enemies with damage reduction, like some bosses, Lemuen might fire too early, dealing less than she should. It's annoying, especially since most enemies with damage reduction are bosses, her supposed specialty. The good news is that most of those bosses, like Sanguine Arch Kristen or Pepe's event boss, have some kind of gimmick that lets you bypass the reduction anyway. But if that still gives you grief, just switch over to skill 3, which skips the aiming mechanic entirely. Now, if damage reduction can trip her up, dodge definitely won't. Her skill 2 shots ignore dodge entirely, which makes her an absolute nightmare for enemies like Manfred. Hypergriff really wanted to bury heavy shooters even deeper, I guess. There's one more quirk worth mentioning. What happens if multiple enemies are marked as wanted? Unfortunately, her archetype trait still applies, so she go after the one with the lowest defense, ignoring taunts in the process. Not exactly ideal in stages like H7-4. But don't worry, there's a trick to work around that, which I'll cover when we get to skill 3. As for comparisons, the obvious one is Ray, another sniper built for cracking tough enemies. Ray's got higher DPS overall and brings some crowd control with her bind effect, which helps keep enemies in range and prevent them from reaching your defense line. But Lemuen completely outclasses her in damage per hit and total damage. Plus, Lemuen's global range means once she locks onto a target, they can run all they want, they are not escaping that bullet. All in all, skill 2 is Lemuen's most signature ability. It plays directly into her strengths, prioritizing the enemies she was literally made to delete. Its downsides mainly come from its low DPS and overall slow tempo. The long aim time and the extra delay from marking targets can make it feel a bit sluggish compared to other options. But when she's up against slow-moving or wandering enemies, especially bosses, this skill absolutely shines. If skill 2 is all about erasing single targets, then skill 3 cranks things up by adding some wave clearing firepower, without losing that boss busting edge. Think of it as a modern turbocharged version of Firewatch skill 2. When you activate it, Lemuen loads 5 rounds and begins scanning her range for enemies, prioritizing, you guessed it, the ones with the lowest defense. Once she picks a target, she locks an artillery strike onto them, consuming 1 bullet per lock. If she still has ammo left after tagging everyone in range, she'll start scanning again for a second round of locks. When all her bullets are spent, she unleashes hell from above. Lemuen calls down a series of orbital strikes, one for each locked target in the order she tagged them. Each strike deals AoE damage with a hefty attack multiplier, and enemies at the center of the blast take even more punishment. The catch, that center zone is tiny, so if you want to nuke multiple enemies efficiently, you'll need a way to clump them together. Now, one of the best parts about this skill is its short cooldown, especially with their module equipped. You can fire it off roughly every 28 seconds, and it's ready just 6 seconds after deployment, meaning you can use Lemuen for heli drop. But there's a trade-off. If you drop her in and fire too soon, she won't get the plus 10% attack and extra bullet from her second talent, which only kicks in after 20 seconds. That missing buff actually makes a noticeable difference, so unless you really need a quick strike, you're better off waiting for the talent to cook. Now, remember how her skill 2 smartly prioritized the wanted enemies? Yeah, skill 3 doesn't do that. It falls back to the Deadeye Sniper trait, meaning Lemuen might waste ammo on weak mobs instead of hitting what really matters. But there's a neat little trick to fix that. You can position Lemuen facing a wall, yes, literally Blair Witch Project style, so she can't see any normal enemies. Then have another Laterano operator mark the targets you actually care about. Since those are the only enemies she can attack, Lemuen will automatically focus on them. Problem solved. Sort of. It works, but it's definitely not perfect. Lemuen won't contribute at all until a new wanted enemy appears, and you need other Laterano units to keep the marks going. In some game modes, that can be a pain to manage. Still, I can see what Hyperglyph was going for here, basically encouraging you to run Lemuen with Exousiae. Not that we really needed an excuse to feel the two sisters together, right? As for comparisons, the closest match would be Wishadel, since both have big burst AoE skills. But let's be real, Wishadel is on her own planet. Instead, I'll just show you some clips of Lemuen absolutely obliterating bosses. In short, skill 3 is a rare true AoE burst skill that combines short cooldown, high damage per hit, and, unlike skill 2, impressive overall DPS. It scales insanely well with attack buffs too. The only downsides are the finicky targeting and the long startup delay, which means you need good timing and planning to get the most out of it. Alright, time to wrap things up. Let's go over Lemuen's main strengths and weaknesses, starting with what she does best. Lemuen's kit revolves around a few but insanely powerful shots. Every bullet she fires hurts. Her damage per hit, which can easily break the 10,000 mark with skill 2, is downright monstrous. She's a certified DPH demon, making her one of the best counters to high defense enemies in the game. Her next big selling point, that pseudo-global range. Lemuen can track and shoot down marked enemies anywhere on the map. Typhon has something similar with her skill 3, but Lemuen basically turns that concept up to 11. She can delete high priority threats without ever putting herself in danger, making her one of the most reliable boss killers out there. Ever since her release, she's been everywhere in boss strats, including the latest Trials for Navigator event. She also scales like crazy with buffs. Slap Warframe's buff on her and she'll start dishing out absurd numbers. I guess Warframe is an honorary Laterano now. And it doesn't stop there. Lemuen scales beautifully with ammo support abilities like those of Executor Alter, Sancta Mix Apparato or Insider, who can either reload her bullets or boost her magazine size. Even 2 or 3 extra rounds make a noticeable difference. And funny enough, all those operators I just mentioned, yep, all Laterano. That's another of Lemuen's strengths. She fits right into the Laterano synergy team, and her performance shoots way up when paired with her own kind. That said, this can be a double-edged sword. While Exusia is a plug-and-play unit that works fine in any squad, Lemuen can feel dependent on other Laterano operators to really shine, especially with their skill 3 setup. Now for the not-so-fun part, her weaknesses. First off, targeting. We've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. Outside of her skill 2, Lemuen's archetype trait can cause her to waste shots on random fodder or switch targets mid-fight without finishing them off. When every bullet counts, that's painful. Second, there's the big question: what's Lemuen's niche? On paper, it's simple. She's your go-to for high defense enemies. But in practice, that niche overlaps with other damage types. If an enemy's got a sky-high defense, you can just use arts damage instead. And if they've got both high defense and res, or annoying things like damage reduction, then true damage operators like Monster or Vina, or elemental damage dealers like Logos tend to be the better picks. Both true and elemental damage also bypass most damage reduction, which is one of Lemuen's weak spots. So yeah, competing with those is an uphill battle, even for a powerhouse like Lemuen. On top of that, Lemuen's best skills come with clear trade-offs. Skill 2 has great targeting but low DPS, while Skill 3 offers high DPS but unreliable targeting. So the real question becomes, is global range alone enough reason to bring her? And then there's her learning curve. Lemuen isn't plug and play. To get the most out of her, you need to know the map inside out, enemy defense stats, spawn timings, routes, everything. If you just throw her in blind, you'll probably walk away thinking she's overrated. She's the kind of unit that rewards game knowledge, not casual use. One last note: attack speed. Normally, ammo-based skills don't synergize well with attack speed. It doesn't increase total damage since you are limited by shots. This isn't to say there's no benefit at all in more attack speed, but the skills that synergize with attack speed are clearly duration skills. That's why people prefer Wishada skill 2 over her skill 3 in IS-5. That said, Lemuen's got some synergy here, since her skill 1 is an offensive recovery skill. The faster she attacks, the quicker she recharges her skill. It's not a huge deal, but it's something. I'll let you decide if attack speed counts as a pro or con. So, should you pull for Lemuen? I'll be straight with you. Lemuen is a fantastic operator, but she's not for everyone. Her value depends a lot on how experienced you are and what your roster looks like. She's amazing in the right hands, but if you don't play to her strengths, she can feel awkward or underwhelming. For that reason, I don't recommend chasing her unless you already have a solid lineup. And honestly, this is just a bad time to splurge. The upcoming banners are stacked. We've got Tragodia, the CCB4 MVP, Lazy Altar, basically Muena's side grade, and then 2 limited banners, one featuring a collab operator who might never come back. You'll need to pick your battles. No matter who you skip, you'll be missing out on someone great. But if you're going to prioritize, limited units come first. Lemuen isn't limited, so you can always grab her later. Alright, that's enough rambling from me. Hopefully this breakdown helped you see what Lemuen is really about. As always, thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.